part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Bernie Kosar of University of Miami fame, where at age 19 he quarterbacked that school to a national championship.
Kosar, long ball, is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over.
Kosar.
Oh, he's open.
Home run ball. Wide open is the rookie Webster Slaughter, and he's in for a second Cleveland touchdown. Kosar looking deep at Slaughter. Downfield, Fontenot's open. Herman Fontenot takes it in, and it's a 7-6 game. Bernie Kosar keeps extending his own playoff records with every pass.
Timing pattern. Touchdown, Cleveland. It's Slaughter in the end zone. And Kosar, he's having a day. That's his fourth touchdown pass in the second.
Kosar to Biner. Well thrown. Ernest Biner. Touchdown. Oh, was that a touch play by Kosar? Kosar. Webster Slaughter. Jackson chasing Slaughter. Spins. Stays on his feet. 98 yards on first down. Bernie Kosar puts it up. What a call. Put a fork in the Bears. They're done.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for stopping by to Sabol Brothers on the Baseline Podcast, all part of the Press Play Podcast Network. We are your hosts, John Sabol.
And I'm Scott Sabol.
And, of course, we are the Sabol Brothers. Mm-hmm. And we've got a fantastic, tremendous guest here with us, Scott. Somebody that you and I have looked up to growing up. Somebody that has we've been trying to get in touch with for a while, and we're gracious enough to work with here at Fox 8. He is a two-time Pro Bowler, a Cleveland Browns legendary quarterback, and a Super Bowl winner with the Dallas Cowboys. Then one and only Bernie Kosar. Bernie, how you been, man? Thanks for coming over.
Doing great. I'm great to be with you. And I got to tell you, I don't think it's too hard to get me on the show or find me because I stalk you every week, bro.
Yeah, you see him, and then you send us messages back and forth.
Well, Bernie and I do as well as PJ Ziegler, Ken Carmen, Andre Knott. We co-host Orange and Brown Countdown, Browns Pregame show right here on Fox 8 Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock. And then, of course, Bernie, you're getting into the podcast realm now with your own podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm loving the Bernie Kosar Show podcast with the great top dog Hanford Dixon as we're doing this about not only our Browns football season, but some of the health and wellness things that us players go through and some of the community-based initiatives that we got going in our community and stuff. And I love the show that you and me do, and I don't want to stroke your bro here, but when I get up early in the morning, okay, this is my morning wake-up guy, too, to see what's going to be transpiring here.
Thank you.
It's funny not to be double-teamed by the Sabol Brothers after staring at you guys too much on my TV screen. I'm not sure if I should be admitting that.
That's all right. That's all right. No problem.
You know what? You and my parents are the ones that do that. And, of course, your podcast is with our friends over at Big Play. And I know you guys launched that this season, so you guys are doing really well with that. And so if you haven't already, subscribe and listen to Bernie's podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe to ours here on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as follow us on Twitter at Sabol Brothers. You can follow me at John_Sabol.
And I'm at Scott Sabol FOX8, and I'm also on Instagram as well, Scott Sabol Pics, PIC. Should we get to the first question, John?
Oh, you're doing the picks too?
I do a lot of weather stuff on there too.
Okay,
yeah.
I gotta know too the Scott Sabol Brothers show handle too. I got that.
You got that, yeah.
And you have to get signed up.
And of course, everyone already follows you on Twitter, but might as well just for well-rounded here, give everyone your Twitter handle.
The Bernie Kosar QB.
There you go. All right.
Should we start at the beginning? Bernie, those of us, our younger viewers, who maybe didn't watch you play but have heard of you since your playing days and since your exposure here in Northern Ohio, take us back to the beginning. Where are you from, and how was it growing up where you grew up?
Growing up in Youngstown, Ohio, growing up halfway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, half the city is Steeler fans, half the city is Browns fans. But both fans, we're basically a steelworker town. So growing up in a steelworker town where the steel mills were closing was pretty scary. I think as young boys, young people trying to figure out what's going to transpire and happen with your hometown and stuff. So sports was really kind of the outlet for us, and that sports was kind of your way, well, not only to escape the maybe some of the stuff from the steel mills and stuff, but also it was your way to get your education and kind of better yourself. So playing football was something, basketball, football, and baseball was the things you did to try to, one, for enjoyment, but two, to try to get a college scholarship and go to, and when I was getting those scholarships back then, kind of being a Northeast Ohio guy, kind of being a mommy's boy, wanted to stay around town here. I've always been tall, slow, and skinny. And not that we were running the wishbone at Ohio State back in the late 70s, early 80s, but they were running the ball a lot. So the schools that were throwing the ball were in the West Coast, like California and Stanford recruited me, or the Florida schools, Florida State, Miami. So I kind of had to grow up to, if I wanted to be good in football, to go to a passing school that was away from home.
What was the biggest transition going from the high school game in Eastern Ohio, Western Pennsylvania back then, to college, and then from college to the pros back then? What was the biggest transition, hardest transition for you?
At each step, I would say the speed of the game, but boy, growing up in Northeast Ohio, it massively helped me in terms of the kind of the toughness, the physicalness, the ability to want to do your best, kind of that taking the hits, because the guys were bigger, stronger, and faster than me. So to kind of have that Northeast Ohio toughness, that the resiliency that we get from growing up here, absolutely kind of prepared me for it. But the speed of the game between high school to college and then college to pros, and that just level of athleticism was just breathtaking.
Mm-hmm.
When you look back at your time in Youngstown and before you ultimately chose to go to Miami, what stood out at you about wanting to go to Miami, wanting to, I know you grew up a Browns fan. Obviously, you knew the rich history here in the state of Ohio, and especially with Ohio State. But was the offense side of everything why you ultimately wanted to go to the U?
Yeah, John, that's a perfect reason. One, I would have loved to have had that type of offense and that type of stuff at Youngstown State and in our hometown. And again, I say it to be funny, or to pretend to be cool, but really being a mommy's boy and loving our area, you want to be around your family and friends and that. So the Miami, the reality of, and I kind of, for this podcast and for life now as an older guy, trying to learn life's lessons, and sports and football teaches you such life lessons. And even though I wanted to be around here and I wanted to stay, I was kind of honest with myself. And when I was 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, I actually thought I was super fast, super athletic.
We all do.
I thought I was strong, and then to really realize that when I get timed in the 40 in high school and I see hear the coach say 5.55 40, and I ask him, is the clock broke? And he goes, no, you're broke.
Wow. I got to remember that next time I play Scott something.
But to that reality that it taught me that maybe I'm not physically as gifted as I thought I was, and that honesty with myself helped kind of prepare me to know that even though I wanted to stay here, the reality I wouldn't be able to play here, and that if I wanted to throw, I had to find a place if I wanted to play football, I had to find a place that knew how to throw the ball. And Coach Howard Snellenberger at the University of Miami was running a pro-style attack, and he was the offensive coordinator with the great Don Shula from John Carroll from up here in northeastern Ohio, and what. That system, albeit a college system at the University of Miami, was from the Dolphins, the 72 Dolphin undefeated team. And that type of pro-style attack absolutely enthralled, fascinated me to want to take advantage and do that. I didn't realize that was the core foundation to really make my transition to the pros easier than it should have been, because the foundation of what he taught me in college absolutely still resides within me today. And that was 1982 and 83 where I was learning that offense and making that decision to go there. And the systems and stuff that he used back then, and then we talk about the game change today, is still used today on the good teams and stuff.
You threw a little bit sidearm, or at least maybe it wasn't the traditional release point up here. And I remember,
you're being kind by a little bit. Thank you, bro. Thank you, man.
I mean, because when I played baseball, I threw a little bit sidearm, and even my son now is like, you don't throw 3/4. Was there ever a coach that told you, hey, you got to readjust your release point here, or did they just kind of let you go?
Well, it's funny why we bond and have the similar the baseball pitching, the throwing, a little 3/4 to sidearm, because that gave us that cut and the little spin of the ball when we were pitching and throwing and stuff. And I did the same thing with that. And then I got used to throwing from that angle. And in my head, I wanted to throw overhand, but I just couldn't carve a good spiral with overhand. My way of getting a spiral just happened to be when I was a little bit 3/4. So it just was able to make me throw it a little better from that perspective with it. But to your question of did coaches try to change me, I'm really showing my age here. But my not only was Coach Howard Schnellenberger and Jimmy Johnson my first 2 head coaches in the pros, but I was really blessed to have my quarterback coach was the great Earl Morrill. And he was my first QB coach, and he taught me a drill, and he talked to me just about that, about try to throw overhand, because it'll be better for your mechanics. And when I was whining to you guys pre the podcast, showing you my elbow that doesn't straighten out, and I wasn't trying to get sympathy points on our turkey bowl today by my inability now to use my arm and stuff, but that I ended up hurting that. But that's something that you really need to work on. Anyway.
So go ahead, John.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say Paul McDonald was the quarterback for the Browns. I think it was right before you came with the Browns, right? He was a left-handed quarterback, right?
Yes.
Left-handed quarterback, and he kind of was the transition, if I remember correctly, between Brian Sipe and then you coming with the Browns. Did Paul McDonald? How was he helpful to you being a rookie coming into the league?
Well, even whether it was Paul McDonald or more so like we were talking about Earl Morrill in college, or the awesome Gary Danielson. And Gary Danielson was really my mentor. If you had to pin me down and say, hey, name one person who was the main guy who taught me the transition to the pro game, it was for sure Gary Danielson. And almost like to your previous question of did coaches try to change me, and I had Earl Morrill at first and he didn't. Gary Danielson and Earl Morrill, that old school kind of mentality from Coach Schnellenberger, which is emulated from Coach Schnellenberger, came from the great Paul Brown, or Bear Bryant, and Don Shula came from Paul Brown. So to have those guys have that kind of ideology and framework was awesome to me. But they said that, we don't want you to throw a sidearm, but ultimately the quarterback's job is get the ball out there on time and accurate. Okay, so if you get the ball on time and accurate, it doesn't matter how you look doing it. So he goes, but if you can't get it on time and accurate, you can't do it like that, but you won't even have to worry about it, because if you can't do it on time and accurate, you're just never going to play.
Right.
And that, and I'm down there now, and for kind of the young listeners out there, not to promote this and talk old about it, but I come down there and there's Jim Kelly, Vinny Testaverde, Mark Richt there. So I'm like 4th, 5th on the depth chart. I'm going to transfer. I'm looking at transferring because I'm thinking I'm going to be a backup my whole career there. My motion's off. I don't look pretty throwing like Jim Kelly and Vinny Testaverde. And I go to Coach and I'm like, Coach, you guys are talking to me about my motion. You're saying it's okay if I get the ball on time, but you don't exactly like it. And now it looks like, you got these awesome quarterbacks that you didn't tell me about. It looks like I'll probably be a career backup. And he goes, yeah, well, you're right. It doesn't look good for you. That's not the answer you want to hear. Right. Okay, that's not on my top 1,000 or what I wanted. And he goes, but I promise you, I'm going to give you a chance. He goes, it's going to be a chance, but the other guys are way farther ahead than you. But he goes, I got to tell you, anything in life that's great, everybody wants it. Everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants to be the quarterback. anything that's great, everybody wants to do it. So he goes, at 18 years old, he goes, if you run from this challenge now and you go back home to mommy, he goes, she'll say you're okay, you'll be okay. You'll run from a challenge the whole rest of your life. He goes, it's better to stand up for it now, go for it, and fail. So he goes, that when you're an old man like me, you don't have any regrets. You don't die from within wondering if you could have been great. You don't want to go your whole life. Do you want to go your whole life wondering if you could have beat Notre Dame and you could have been the University of Miami quarterback? Because if you leave my office now and you go home, you'll never know if you could be a quarterback at the top tier school. And I'm like, wow. Like, I don't want to live with regret. I don't want to think I overanalyze stuff as it is anyways.
And you ultimately stayed and ultimately had success there. Right. Yeah. And then, of course, you mentioned real quick Gary Danielson, and for a lot of our listeners that don't know who he is, they may recognize that name from him broadcasting the color analyst on CBS Sports doing SEC football.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because not only is Gary doing an awesome job as the main guy for a decade plus is on CBS for the SEC games of the week, and because he's so smart, the head coaches cringe when they come to the production meeting the day before.
Because he knows what he's talking about and could, not rip them apart, but do it in a nice kind of way. Like, hey, coach, this is what we're doing. And I'll coach the coaches in a way.
And he could decipher when he's getting BS'd and stuff.
Sure.
But, yeah, his knowledge of football is so awesome. And what he was able to do between what Marty Schottenheimer was implementing and what I learned from Howard Snellenberger and Jimmy Johnson was actually a completely different philosophical belief. So coming in when I thought that everybody ran offense like the pro-style attack I had in Miami with Snellenberger and Jimmy Johnson, I just assumed that was going to be like that in the pros, and it really wasn't. And it's not a shot at Marty, because there's more than one way to skin a cat, but his way was different. I hadn't learned it yet. So, wow, was Gary Danielson just insurmountably important. I mean, I would not have been able to make that transition to be successful. Our team wouldn't have won without him. And he took a lot of bullets for me. And I have this thing today where I called my own plays. Gary coaches back then let the quarterbacks call their own plays. And the worst thing was, at the minimum, you were allowed to at least audible. Change plays, at least some, because if the Snellenberger, Coach Shule, or Jimmy Johnson, they would say, hey, if you have 7, 8 guys to the right, don't run to the right, run to the left. Look where they're weak at. That was just a common sense approach. When we got to the pros, I assumed that would be the evolution of it. It really wasn't. So to have somebody like Gary, who was able to not only coach and transition me, but also coach the coaches, was invaluable.
So from Miami, you did the supplemental draft and eventually got picked up by the Browns. Yeah. When you found out that the Browns eventually acquired you that way, what was that moment like for you?
It was just a lot of work to actually, because the rules were so different then. Mm-hmm. So, like, you didn't have to have the supplemental draft. So it's like I want to be able to say, because it'd be easier for the revisionist history to say, hey, it was a great surprise, it was awesome when it happened. But because it was orchestrated beforehand, that I was going to actually just stay in college. If the Browns weren't, if Commissioner Tagliabue or Commissioner Rozelle, I'm not even sure back then.
I think it was Pete Rozelle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If Commissioner Rozelle wasn't going to allow the Browns to make the trade, I was just going to stay in college. So he had to okay that the Browns were okay to make the trade, and that happened just like about a week or so beforehand. And that feeling of God, it sounds cocky to say this, but that feeling of accomplishment, because you had to graduate college to be able to go into the supplemental draft. So just that in itself of graduating college in 2.5 years with a finance degree, as a Youngstown, Ohio kid, where a lot of people don't get degrees and stuff, to just get that on top of, I was walking out of my finance class knowing I just passed my last test to get my degree. I'm getting the phone call just then, a week before that draft.
Wow.
That the commish is, boy, I'm even getting a little choked up thinking about that the commish is going to not challenge anything and let the Browns make the trade. And that reality of all that was just, even to this day, you know, almost 40 some years later, still emotional.
Was it your goal to get through college in under 4 years when you started? When did you start to accelerate your academics?
Well, but the great question. So I started in high school. So again, I give such a shout out and love to my dad and stuff. And we've had at times, you know, you don't realize at times sometimes when people are helping you that it's something monumentally important.
Sure.
So things like in junior and senior in high school, when we want to be goofing around, trying to have the girls notice us, go out at night, have fun at our games and that. My dad was obsessing on the CLEPs, the college level entrance placement test. So I actually took some things that I was good at. So I kind of have some good gifts in math. And so I took some math classes that I'd clept out of college credits in high school. So I started college with like 24 credits, which was basically as a sophomore.
Yeah, you're already like a sophomore level then.
Yeah, so, and then my coaches were all, I'm not saying all my coaches are mad at me for the being on the podcast, but a few of my coaches were mad at me because they're like, wait, no, football players, you're supposed to not clap out of the easy classes. You need those for your GPA so that you can be eligible. And I'm like, and I'm not trying to say this to be cocky or cavalier, but I never was one of those issues with the eligibility.
Sure,
So
right.
The schoolwork came easy, but I was just laughing how they were kind of yelling at me. No, wait, you need those classes for your GPA. But my dad was really aggressive with understanding the curriculum. So he had got me to take some classes to get these tests done. So now I start out as like a late freshman or early sophomore. And then he had the test done, and I never really thought I was going to be pro. Like I said I was going to be the quarterback. I kind of said I wanted to, but deep down the reality was I didn't think I was going to be able to. So knowing we didn't have like the financial resources to do this, I was crushing through school so I can do my master's and get it paid for. Because I thought I'd be a 5-year guy, get your degree in like 2.5 years, then you could get into your master's program and kind of get all of that compensated for, because University of Miami is a private school, so it's super expensive.
Sure.
We couldn't have afforded to do that, so it was really just to get multiple degrees and stuff. And the football thing just took off. I mean, I like to be able to say, yeah, well, you of course you want it, but did you really think it was going to happen? No. Right. And then when it started happening, that it all kind of converged together.
So you have an analytical mind, good with math. How did that help you in the NFL? You read defenses really well. I remember watching a game. I watched a game on YouTube with my son, and he noticed how different the game was back then, which is a whole other question. But how did that help you on the football field as a quarterback?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and so today they call it analytics. Back then it was algebra. Okay, so and it's a little more in depth with the calculations and the algorithms and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's statistics and it's math, and the algorithms and the math that you do. I absolutely did that back then. I mean, there was yes, we practiced. Yes, you did physical stuff. The majority of the work week, and a week like this where it's the middle of the week and it's a game week and stuff, the majority of it would absolutely be spent on mental preparation. And I loved having all the statistical math of stuff. So things like 1st and 10 breakdowns, where they're 76% of the time safety's in the middle of the field, whereas then you get to 2nd and 7+, and you get 2 deep high safeties 56% of the time, 42% of the time they're in a zone coverage off of that. Only 15% in that 2 deep is the man coverage component to it. There's 25 to 250 of those mathematical analytics that you could piece in your head, and I absolutely love them because there's statistics like I would use back then, and I would know in my head, so I'd be cramming these into me, like you cross the 50-yard line, and once you cross the 50 and it's 2nd and 7 plus, they now, although they're not a blitz team, they 47% of the time on 2nd and 7 plus, they do a blitz. Wow, when you know, like, you could tune into stuff like that and you're predisposed for that. Now I know in the huddle, I'm going to tell my guys, hey, the coach called this play. I think it sucks. Okay, heads up, 47% of the time I know it's probably a blitz. I'm looking over at the sideline. I see the pandemonium. I'm not looking at our sideline. I look at the other team's sideline. I look at the signal callers. They, in zone basic coverages, guys are calm. 43 under cover 2. They tend to be calm in those things. In man situations, 2, 3, fire 8, bucket 9.
So you're reading their nonverbals. You're reading.
Oh yeah, you could read it. It's
wow.
like it's the people laugh and you talk about it, but yeah, people in the heat of fire give up what they're doing, and you could just look at them and you could see, and they give it away.
Can you read nonverbals now watching Browns games on the defense? Like from TV, I know it's different than being under center, but like if you're watching a game and you're looking at like the defense, can you pick up things that the casual viewer cannot?
So on TV, because the camera angles and the amount of cameras now and the production quality of games is top tier, and you can get so many different angles. You could absolutely pick up stuff on TV, and when you're there. And you have the right angles. That's why some of the coaches have the right angles.
Sure.
And the video cameras there. You absolutely could do that.
We gotta get together at a Browns game because I know we both go to them, cover it, and you're there. I would love to sit like a couple series with you. I want you to pick some things out. That's so fascinating to me. I know one of the biggest things that we discussed before we taped one of our pregame shows before the season started was, and Scott, you don't know about this, but when the Browns made that big news of having Brownie the Elf at the 50-yard line, remember that conversation?
Yeah.
You're like, well, it's a little different when you have quarterbacks because tell the story of the helmet, the original Browns helmet on the field at the old Municipal Stadium and why that was so crucial for you as an offense and why it was a little different for the Browns this year. Also, it was a new quarterback, new receivers, maybe not as impactful, but for you, back in the day, having something on the field like a logo on the field was instrumental and crucial for your play.
Yeah, take advantage of everything at your disposal, any number, a bit of knowledge, any bit of information and stuff, and understanding your environment within that beautiful rectangle of that field. So the logos, we've had moments in my career where there were logos, helmets. Now we never had the elf, I don't think, but we now have the elf and stuff. I'm not sure I like the elf anyways, our luck and the way the season's going, so it's absolutely not the good luck elf that we were hoping for.
I like the elf, but I agree that it's not helping them this year.
But I like and maybe it's the math background of a linear, symmetrical, geometric thoughts and stuff where the elf isn't as pointed with. But I got in trouble on my last play for drawing it up in the dirt. Okay, because it was we now have a beautiful landscape field, but before it was on that landfill mud spray painted green, and you were able to really just draw plays in the dirt and stuff. And when you have guys and you want to talk to them specifically, and for someone like me who was changing plays and stuff, and the attention to detail, how you do little things really matters, is how you do all things. And I would want to tell guys to, go to when we had a face mask, go to where the front of the face mask is. If you don't touch that, okay, you and me are going to have a problem, okay? If you're going to go, and now with the elf, I don't know the elf's
geometry
is good yet, but to where the fingers are or to where his foot is, there's parts on the field where you want to make and use a specific thing, and that's what I would use. Want to really break it down into something really simplistic, because when you're out there, you've got emotion going, but yet the elements are going on. you've been banged around, your head's usually hurting. When you could kind of break it down into something that's simplistic, like, hey, in the old, like when you guys were probably little brothers goofing around, in the backyard, hey, go down to the tree and make a right.
Right,
Yeah.
sure.
Go down, step on the helmet, and then you go outside. Don't go to the sideline till you've touched the logo. Whether it's
When you said that to me that day we were taping our pregame show, I just thought that was amazing. And it just totally makes sense. I never thought about it that way.
So take us back to that last play, because you brought it up, the one you drew in the dirt.
29-year anniversary a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So what was take us right at the beginning of that play, just the whole thing from beginning to end.
So we're in a 2-minute drive, and we're needing to score quick. So they're playing that kind of covers dropping 7-8 guys, soft covers. But they had a tendency they would let you do that to about the 50-yard line. And as soon as you cross the 50-yard line, they tended to get more aggressive and stuff. And I'd been thinking through this, and I'd been throwing a couple 16-yard square ends to Michael Jackson. And it got to about the 50-yard line, and they're pros too, and I know they know I like to, in 2-minute drills, throw that square into Michael Jackson. And I'd already done it 1 or 2 times in front of them. So I know they're not going to let me do that. And now we call it analytics today, but to the math of it back then, they crossed the 50. When we crossed the 50, they had a higher tendency to blitz and play pressure coverage. So I'm knowing we got to score quick, and then knowing that Bill was mad at me for changing plays. But I ultimately, the quarterback's job is to get out there, score, and try to win the game. So I knew that if I had God flashed in me a square in takeoff, and I hadn't never run it before, and hadn't actually really even thought about it. But I saw Dennis Smith kind of jump up on it. So I'm like, God, I've hit the square in at 16 yards. I'm going to tell him to run a square and take off. But I was talking to him, and I didn't. And God, Michael Jackson's passed, so I'm not making fun of him. But you want to make sure he got it. And I was looking in his eyes, and it just didn't look like it resonated. And I'm looking at his eyes, and in the background is Coach Belichick, looking like death at me. So the panic set in of I got to get him to understand this, or I just can't do it. So I wasn't getting through with my vocabulary. So I just got on the ground and I drew it up for him. And I go, hey man, check this out. And he to the point of the logo. So help me God, when you go to your square in, you're going to go 3 steps in. You get looking towards almost like when I yelled at you earlier in the game to get to the logo in the middle of the field. Get your steps in and then take it deep like that.
So, and this leads me to my next question: your relationship with Coach Bill Belichick.
Well, real quick, one thing, Seth.
Yeah.
After that game,
yes,
you ended up getting released.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, now go back to
yes.
that. Yes.
So you were in the tunnel with Coach Bill. Can you say what you guys said? And second question on top of that, how has your relationship evolved since then?
So it's funny. There's our conversation afterwards was I came off the field, and there's been a lot talked about in the tunnel that we got in a fight and stuff, and he was yelling and that we were throwing punches and stuff. We actually didn't talk that much, and we didn't have any fight or anything. So it was professional and stuff. But coming off the field, I'm kind of excited. Hey, you just threw a touchdown pass. You came up with something pretty creative. It worked seamlessly. And it wasn't like I did it to embarrass you. So nobody really knew at that point. So I could I actually said hey bro, we could cover it you called it too. I'll give you credit for it. It doesn't matter. It's just because it really is a result-oriented world, and it's a team in there. But he was like, oh man, you're being insubordinate with it. So I get released the next day, and
did it surprise you, by the way?
It surprised me. Yeah, I mean we were in first place.
Yeah.
I mean to be in first place at the time, to be the starting quarterback, it surprised me. Of course, it bummed me out. You're trying to act like you're cool, like you can handle it and stuff. And in retrospect, it's probably one of the great blessings for me to go to Dallas and to get a Super Bowl ring there, and then second too, it was I actually didn't then have to be part of making that decision when the team left a year and a half later. So indirectly, I didn't know it at the time. I hate to say it, I was feeling sorry for myself, because I wanted to start and finish as a Brown. But I didn't have to kind of go through that. Do I go with the team? Do you move with that? And we all don't like to admit it. We were joking here today that as we get older, we don't want, as men, we don't want to admit our bodies are deteriorating and stuff. At the end of our careers at football, we absolutely don't want to admit our bodies are deteriorating. But they are. And mine was at that point too. And I wasn't all blameless. Like, I don't think Bill was either. And I think he would admit that too, not wanting to put words in his mouth. But I love now, like, the relationship we have, and why I believe he was going to be a great coach. Like when he had that mess with the Jets, and he resigned as the HC, and people, and then Mr. Kraft makes that amazing trade, and they give up first-round picks to trade for him, and they're like, oh my God, they're crushing the crazy owners hiring Bill, and they're getting all us ex-players to crucify him. So a lot of the media were calling me, thinking I'm going to jump on a bandwagon and dive in. And people are saying, oh man, you were cool, you took the high road. But really, it's the truth too. As I said, Bill's, and he was with me. He was amazing working at defense, his work ethic, his discipline, his special teams, and he'll learn the offense, and he'll outsource it this time. Mm-hmm. And he goes, he calls me up and he goes, hey man, I didn't know you liked me. I go, I don't know if I like you, but I do mean it. You are going to be a great coach.
But it's great though, as time heals and you guys both learn and get more mature and stuff. I mean, you don't hold anything on it. He doesn't either, and you guys are obviously civil and get along great.
Oh no, get along great. And we all realized, I learned a lot about like management and actually too, it's the anxiety and pressure that some of the great coaches put on you as players to not let you feel comfortable to evolve and grow and play good on Sundays is really a lesson in psychology that he really taught. But also too, we all evolve and learn, and I knew that it was cool to kind of watch now that the offense that got me whacked for is the offense that he runs. Sure. That he has so much success with Tom Brady.
Do you have any, this is kind of going down a different road here, any interesting Cleveland Stadium stories about the facility itself?
Well, I love what a bad football field and how bad it was to play in. I mean, the no water, the Jerry Glanville talking about a hanger and a nail and stuff. But I think one of my, and there was no warm water in the home team's locker room either. Okay? They sucked too. Okay, so don't even think we had anything.
Eric Metcalf said the same thing to us when we had him on our podcast.
It was ridiculously bad. So, but that was something where it absolutely was a home field advantage. Again, I don't condone the activity that we had with the big old dog bones that we were chucking at people. It was violent to get in there. It was intimidating to come in. But I think one of my probably funnest stories and funner games was we played the Steelers. Being a Youngstown boy, playing the Pittsburgh Steelers was a big thing. Dad used to say, I don't care if the Browns lose every game, as long as they beat the Steelers twice, it's a winning football season.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to get playing the Steelers. I'm so excited. It's in and around Thanksgiving. It's not fishing for a birthday compliment, but it's around my birthday, Thanksgiving, Steeler week. It's late November, so we know the magnitude of late November games in the playoffs. And we know now that Mr. Modell had some financial issues, so he had to do some creative things with the stadium. Yes. So one of the ways he did with the stadiums to create more money is he'd have concerts there. So he had a Pink Floyd concert at the stadium before the Cleveland Browns Pittsburgh Steelers games, I think in like 1986, 87. It was the overtime game against the Steelers where I got to throw to Webster Slaughter for the touchdown down the sidelines. Well, the concert before the day or two before the game. And again, for the young listeners out there, careful in what your choices. But there was a lot of people smoking cigarettes and smoking marijuana there. So I get sacked. I get smashed into the ground. My face mask in the ground. I come up and there's a roach right in there. You know.
Wow.
Right in your face mask?
Right in my face mask. Right in the face mask. I didn't wear a mouthpiece, so it's right there.
Wow. It probably had to alleviate some pain, right?
It didn't alleviate the pain till after the game, but there was no pain because we won the game.
There you go.
So, how was it to break the Pittsburgh streak, the losing streak in '86? Right.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up.
Is that your favorite Browns memory? What the Pittsburgh streak here? Would you say?
Ending it.
Probably one of the best. I don't know. I'm going to say memory is a nice word, and it's almost like whether people ask, "Hey, how excited were you after all these games?" A lot of it is more relief.
Sure.
But excited, awesome relief too. Yeah, to be a little boy, to be 0-16. I had an easier time for some reason getting tickets to Three Rivers Stadium in the old days. So I would where I grew up in Boardman, Youngstown Boardman, was actually closer there. So I actually saw a few Browns-Steelers games from the Three Rivers perspective. And to be a boy, a little boy, you're second grade, third grade, fourth grade, trying to skip church to get home, trying to get home to watch the game. Right. And every Sunday for your whole childhood, you lost the game. So I remember like 79, 80, 81, where you're sophomore, junior in high school. So you're trying to pretend you're old.
Sam Martigliano days back then.
Yeah, and but you're still emotionally invested so much in that, and we're losing those games. And I still remember like really being messed up emotionally. Excuse my language, pissed off at that. And then that's like 81, 82, and then here I am. Graduated college, and it's 1985 and 86. I still feel like I'm like, what the hell am I even the quarterback for my team, let alone I'm responsible to end this damn thing? Like, how am I going to break it up? So that all that kind of was clicking through my head, and as you get older, it's fun to reminisce on that.
You were 10-4 against the Steelers.
Yep.
That's incredible.
That is incredible. Did you ever want to go into coaching after playing?
Part of me does. Part of me did. I also, though, being a Mr. Mom, having 4 kids, 3 of which are awesome daughters and stuff, wanting to do hands-on with them, and knowing that a lot of coaches, you hear that a lot of coaches, and they move, so your kids grow up in different, not really in the continuity of like you guys did, certain school districts and stuff, but also, too, just maybe this is just barbarically old Youngstown prehistoric. I don't want my daughters growing up around all those football guys. I was coaching.
Yeah. Real quick question about Cleveland Stadium. When it was torn down, obviously you were already retired, and the Browns were moved, and you were still in the NFL, but you were with the Cowboys. Did you get anything? Did you take anything from the stadium? Did the Browns or anybody that you know there ever offered anything like a seat or a sign? Did you have anything from the old stadium?
So getting some goosebumps as you say that. It's one of the cool things I have is, and I have more. I had more as we aged. Man, keeping tabs on stuff's hard. But man, I have some awesomely cool 19 seats.
Oh, no kidding.
So, man, we're going to massively show our age, but they are those wooden, metal, with 19 guys, really cool.
Were they yellow or red?
Yellow.
Yellow, okay.
They got the yellow ones.
So we both have a stadium seat.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell that quick story to Bernie?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was working downtown here, and they were doing the demolition, and I knew one of the police officers that was running the demolition. He said, "Hey, I can get you 2 seats." I go, okay. So I got one, and then I went down there and paid for another one. It was the eeriest feeling, walking into the park, and then walking in, I kind of squeezed through and standing in the center field bleachers under the scoreboard. I'm the only one in the park, seeing the faded Browns logo on the field, knowing that stadium hadn't been used in like a year or two. the creepiest feeling I've ever had. Only one standing there like, oh my God, this place is going to be gone here in another couple months.
That second one, which one?
I wish I'd have done that. I would have liked to have done
Yeah.
that. I have them, but I would have liked to have done it.
Yeah, it was yellow and red.
Which one was that second one, though?
I don't remember. I forget what one I had first.
So he has the red one, and I have the yellow. So then he gave me the yellow one later. So I have one in my basement and everything. But I always just find that fascinating. I know, like, certain players like to keep some things or take some things.
You know, the nostalgia of, the nostalgia of having the 19 jerseys. You know, we're talking to the Steeler games, and they used to put those cool, the fans used to bring signs, and you'd have the signs hanging out there, and you're talking about your basement. I have my 19. Oh, I got to send you this picture. I have my one of my 19 Browns seats in the stadium, next to the Bernie part of the old Orange Bowl when I got my number retired, and it was part of the whole friggin' stadium.
It's on the facade, yeah.
On the whole, when they knocked down the
Orange Bowl, yeah.
and that's been God, I really want to. It's emotional here thinking of that because as an old guy, but to have that from the days where. From the national championship and from playing there,
That's got to be huge.
Yeah, it's long. It's longer in this room.
Is it in your basement or where?
It's in my basement in Mandalay, bro. Yeah, don't sneak out there, anybody. Okay, I'm not the best at security. Okay,
that is great.
Yeah, no. So those type things, I didn't think a ton about it. Like seriously, at your age and stuff. But now as I'm getting older and stuff, and you're bored at night and you go down and you see, like, as we're seeing with you guys, the 19 next to the Orange Bowl Stadium and the Bernie was pretty cool.
Do you have any game-used jerseys from your Browns days, and do you have any helmets that you wore?
Wow, that's even a better question. So yes to all those questions. And the game-used jerseys and stuff, I wish I was better at keeping pictures and jerseys and helmets and stuff at the old days. And this was something that all probably too much for today to start talking about health and wellness and stuff. But the NFL teams never let us keep our NFL helmets.
Back then, yeah. Even probably now, too.
Probably now, but now that we're going to start talking about it, you may be able to. Right. And for your kids out there, watch this for your moms and kids with your football and stuff. So they used to take your helmets after all the games and refinish them, okay? So every day, and we used to say, because you want to look good, it has to look pretty for TV and stuff and that. And that could be, okay? But the other thing was for a health and wellness side of it. So now when I do my PET scans, so I have my rookie helmet. Brian Brennan, the great Brian Brennan, who's a little miserish with his dollars, okay? He stole it from my locker, okay, in '85, and he raffled it off, okay? And Brennan, I love you, brother, but he's the only guy that raffles stuff off, and he ends up with it still, okay? So he's got my rookie helmet after the year, and he goes, hey, man, I need this for my charity. So, dude, it's my helmet. Like, I don't change my stuff. I always want my one same helmet. And he takes it, and he ends up taking it. I end up getting it back, and that's the helmet that I have on the podcast.
Oh, on the table,
okay?
yeah.
It's on the table of the podcast. That's my real helmet there. And I keep that purposely because when I look at it now, and you look at it, it was refinished some from the team in that. But when I now go do my PET scans, and I do with my pre-dementia and the brain disorder stuff that us ex-players are dealing with, and you see like the head trauma of on the PET scans, and then you look at the helmet and you see the scar across the right front, which is for your short-term memory, 4 to 10 seconds, is a massive cut there, and then you see on the left, on the back where you got hit, and then you see on your PET scan that's the damaged area. It's real. So now I keep them, and it's kind of I originally probably was almost like a badge of courage type stuff, but now I've been using it to match up like where some of the disorders are that I'm trying to rectify health-wise.
And we'll have more with Bernie Kosar right after this.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it, Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
What's up, everyone? Chase Smith here, host of the Chase Smith Podcast, and my podcast reflects who I am. My hobbies, my interests, my passions, my curiosities, my careers, my questions, and my family. I'll spend time talking about all types of sports, movies, TV shows, trending news stories, and other cultural events, and even faith. This is who I am, and I hope I can get to know you as well. Join me on the Chase Smith Podcast, and let's have some thought-provoking conversations, only on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
So, Bernie, you talked about concussions. That's been the big story with football and with sports in the last 5 to 10 years in trying to diagnose them and be proactive. You've had issues, neurological issues. You've talked about that. Other players have. There's so much to cover here. Let's go back to when you played. What was different back then? How did they diagnose it? And where have we come from? And what are you doing now to help yourself deal with the issues that you have?
Wow. So there's a lot there
to
that. And it's such a serious question that I really want to answer it thoughtfully, long-windedly, and seriously. Okay? All that being said, the concussion stuff, now, I chuckle at again, I'm going to say this in the form of humor and humorous and stuff, but it is really serious, and it is friggin' prehistorically barbaric, and why so many of my old teammates and brothers, we really have to help them out. We have to figure out financially ways to help get them into these type treatments and stuff, because like today, like we're looking at our phones and stuff here, like, so before the season you'll do a baseline concussion evaluation, and you'll have a really automated, technical, scientifically based study that will give you an app to where your cognitive baseline is before you suffer an injury or a subconcussive or a concussive blow and stuff. So they'll have the documentation, so when you something happens, you can really do the baseline for that, and it's really a beautiful scientific way. Now, there are some guys today that are blowing the baseline at the beginning by acting cognitively impaired, so that when it happens during the game, they don't get taken out.
Really?
So that their baseline's bad, so that when they really are bad, it may not appear like that, so they can stay in the game. There are guys doing that now. And we probably did that back when we played too. But like back then, we didn't know the real damage of it. You know, the real trauma that you're doing to the brain and stuff. But there's that whole really complex, detailed test right then. Back then we did we just did the finger test, and they actually told you before the season, they coached you that it was going to be 2. So they wouldn't give you 1 finger because it was going to be too easy. They wouldn't give you 3 because you may miss it. So it was always 2 was your concussion test. And if you could remember that it was 2, or you just saw that it was 2, that passed the concussion test.
I remember when you told me that a few weeks ago. I was like, "Oh my gosh, really?"
So I had a good one. I had one where I got knocked out and they're coming out, and it happened so much. I was in the routine, and I was already into what play I was going to bluff through. So they're asking me, like, how many fingers are you? They go, do you got a concussion? How you doing? Like, we got to do the evaluation. And then they go, how many fingers? I go, 2. They go, you're lying. I didn't put my fingers up yet. I'm like, what do you mean lying? I'm not concussed. I'm Nostradamus. I saw the future. I knew you were putting 2 up.
Wow.
You know,
How about the treatments you're getting now? Can you describe some of the treatments you're getting and other players are getting?
So that's 2 different answers. And the treatments that other players are getting are the treatments that I was getting. And those are the treatments, I believe, that accelerated and amplified 40 surgeries, the 80 broken bones it didn't cause, but the concussions. And then I had 14 to 15 seizures. My last 2 seizures, I was in a coma for 72 and 96 hours, following the protocols, following the procedures, following the medicines that they had us on through the NFL, the league, and the programs they're doing. It was really something that was, at least for me and a lot of my friends, accelerating our death. I unfortunately was mentioned, you guys saw that stat of guys that are played more than 7 or 8 years in the league. Their life expectancy is 57 or 58 years old. So, like that, those protocols of really surgery, physical therapy, and scripting. You know, the pain medications, the Toradol shots that when you're playing are one thing. You know, I was joking with you guys. The doctor that did Tua in 2022 still was my doctor in the mid-90s. I have railroad track surgeries from him, and some of the stuff that they did. It's one thing maybe to say in the 90s you didn't know, but we now know more in 2022. And to be doing the same tragically amplified things that they did to me in the 90s, still doing it to some guys. So I fortunately, when I came out of my 96th hour of coma, and the doctor said to me how tough I was and how good I'm doing, and that I should keep up with my scripts and protocols. I'm like, dude, you're the dude killing me. So I came up with what I thought was and I'm not saying this to sell and stuff, it was really for self-preservation and self-need, was a real holistic juicing program of IV therapy and non-pharma stuff that's real heavily CBD, THC oil based with IVs that have really flushed and detoxed my system. And us guys, some of the stuff I'm trying to say cavalierly or calmly, it's not easy to say, but so many of us guys don't know that even some of these things or options are out there. And for somebody like me that 4 years ago was diagnosed with 5 years left of cognitive brain function, you know, to be pre-dementia and to really think you were 4 years ago to where you couldn't really articulate, enunciate, communicate really any multiple syllable words. There's no way I would have wanted to get up in the morning early and do what we did today, you know, and be enjoying it too, you know. So to be able to figure out some of this stuff now for myself, now kind of talking about it a little bit, not to amplify me or myself or a selling thing, but a lot of us guys, we have a hard time keeping in touch, and we're kind of losing hope as to what some of the options are. And when we go for help, we don't know where to find it. We were looking today. We were all with Greg Pruitt and his leg and knee, and you know, some of the things that us guys trying to find genuine, real help that doesn't amplify or make the issue worse.
The holistics, from when you started to right now, how much an improvement have you had?
Well, I think I died the first one, so it was so bad. I mean, it was to be how I was in 2017 and 18 to I was quite a few ho-hos north of 320. You know, to be able to come back to where I'm weighing what I weighed when I came to Cleveland in 1985 to when I was taking all the high blood pressure medicine, forget, all the pain medications and depression type medications they put you on, just the high blood pressure medicines of 3 or 4 or 5 of those, and you have high blood pressure of 150 over 100, and they're telling you that it's really good. You know, and you're taking the medications and you're doing that. And then now to not take any of that, to do the juicing, the IV therapy, and the high dose CBD THC oils, with this amniotic fluid with it. I mean, to be 120 over 80, to not have, I haven't taken a pill since 2018. Wow. Not any pills, not even high blood pressure stuff.
How much weight have you lost since you changed your approach to your address your medical issues?
So I think I lost a human. You know, wow. I lost what most men are searching for, 110, 120 pound woman to marry. I lost that.
What did you change in your diet besides just the medication?
So I so love my heritage. I so love where we grew up here, you know, as an inbred Slovak who grew up on kielbasa and pierogies for breakfast, okay? But we wonder why we die at 65, okay? So my diet with this juicing that I do is really really heavy with a Vitamix machine. So I'm in for anybody out here who thinks it's hard. A lot of water and your vegetables. And put that in there, and then I'll probably do over 100 ounces of water a day, good water a day, and I'll probably do about 45 to 60 ounces of juice smoothies a day, and that'd be like water, spinach, kale, lemon, ginger, turmeric. Nothing rocket science, and lots of it. And if you do lots of that, and then people say, well, then what do you eat? Go eat. If you do a couple of those before each meal, you can still eat whatever you want. God bless you if you're going to go eat, though, a lot of food after you put 30 ounces of that type juice in.
Do you eat any protein, like meat or anything, chicken, stuff like that still, or no?
So I used to probably be 80 to 90% meat and that type stuff. Now I'm probably, and 10%, 15%. The vegetables and stuff. Now I'm probably the other way. Wow. So I'm probably 10 or 15% of that.
What is your cheat meal then?
When you did this program, like, I'm not doing this because of self-discipline or
trying to look good or anything. You're doing this for mental.
No, I'm not even doing it for mental.
No?
When I did this this program where you heavy juice, I do my IV, and then I stop the medications, and I do this this CBD high dose THC oil. It's not. I do not vape out there. This has nothing to do with smoking CBD or THC. But the high dose CBD THC oil that I it did almost a reset of my brain. So like, if I said it doesn't ask to have drinks. Like, I actually can't even handle really alcohol. If I wanted to cheat and to go, like, have a huge pizza or have, I love you, Mom. I don't exactly mean this, but if I had to eat the whole kibasi, what I used to do every Thanksgiving of my life, you know, I just can't do it. I physically can't tolerate it right now. And it did a reset of my brain to where it doesn't ask for it. Even though I'll tell Mom it does, I do.
Sure.
But physically, it's almost got me so healthy inside that it won't stay down there. It'll be unpleasant.
It's kind of like someone who grew up a vegetarian or vegan, and then if you give them a piece of chicken or beef or pork, they will get sick because their body is not used to that foreign substance.
That's what's happening to me now. Yes.
Caffeine, alcohol, nothing.
So I was, I have some great wellness docs that I work with. It's just not Dr. Bernie, okay? YouTube Dr. Bernie, okay? Although I do like what I've learned on my own is testing stuff on my own. But I have some really great docs. Alt Care is and their Primetime Wellness. They're very progressive on what they're doing. There's Dr. Roizen. And I went 5 years without drinking any caffeine, any coffee. And one of my docs was like, man, you got to try to supplement, and we're going to try to figure out what's up. And I go, give me something. He's telling me, don't do this, don't do that. And I go, give me one thing that you think I should do to help flush, because I'm into blisters. I'm trying to flush and detox my brain and liver. So if you work on your gut toxicity and your leaky gut, there's a direct correlation between your gut and your brain. So if you could work on that kind of gut part of it, you could kind of slow down the deterioration of that with them.
Wow. Well, you look fantastic. And it's whatever's working for you, keep doing it.
Keep it up.
Because you're a fine specimen of a human being, obviously, but also a former football player. And everyone that comes across you, whether it's in the media world, fans, the Browns, you name it, everyone raves about how awesome you are. And it's true. And I'm blessed enough to work with you a little bit here at Fox 8.
Well, I'm happy to be with the Sabol Brothers, man. All right.
Bernie, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great holiday.
Awesome, man. You matter, guys.
You matter.
Say what you want about Bernie, John, and I know sometimes, people get on Bernie because maybe the way he talks, because he has a little bit of a Pittsburgh accent, a little bit of a Youngstown accent, and I think sometimes people go, you know what, Bernie doesn't know what he's talking about. Bernie knows what he's talking about. You really get deep into his own football analytics and how he was able to maybe overcome the fact that he wasn't the most athletic guy. He wasn't the fastest guy. But he studied the game, and that's how he was able to become the successful player that he was.
I think the biggest thing about Bernie that I took away, and just from knowing him for the last, 5 months or so, working with him on the Orange and Brown Countdown pregame show, is how much of a guy that he is, where he is just a genuinely nice person, loves life, treats everyone with respect. Right. It doesn't matter who you are. He's just one of those guys where you could just, sit there and have a game, watch a game, and just he's just one of the boys. And I did not expect that before getting to know him a little bit. But in terms of the football side, man, he is a wealth of knowledge. He points things out that you would never even think of when you're watching football.
And it's like baseball. A lot of baseball players remember plays from 30, 40 years ago. He remembers plays. He remembers how he drew them up. He remembers what was going on, the expressions on people's faces. And now, unfortunately, because he grew up in an era where concussions weren't diagnosed like they are now, now he looks at well-being and making sure that he can live a really nice life. He's in his mid-late 50s. He doesn't want to be a casualty of football, and he's taken it upon himself to educate people about, okay, this is what we went through. This is what you need to do to better yourself and to make sure you take care of yourself, whether you're a football player or not a football player.
And to be aware of that is key, and to make that transformation. It's one thing to say it than to act upon it, and now he's spreading the word. He wants to help people in that field, in football, that have had the same issues health-wise that he's had, or in some cases even worse. Right. Tremendous time to talk with the legendary Bernie Kosar. We hope you enjoyed this one here on the Sabol Brothers and the Baseline Podcast, all part of the Press Play Podcast Network. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify. You can follow me at John_Sabol, or follow the pod at Sabol Bros on Twitter.
You can follow me on Twitter, Scott Sabol FOX8, or on Instagram, Scott Sabol PICS. Thanks very much for joining us, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Have a great day.